Ever catch yourself staring at like a milk jug and wondering, why this plastic? No, just me.
All right, well, either way, get ready because today we're going deep on plastics. Why choosing the right one matters.
It's more than you might think.
Oh, I bet. Whether we're talking about that milk jug or a car part or anything in between, it seems like plastics are everywhere.
Totally.
And to help us break it all down, we've got insights from Polysource.
They're awesome.
Yeah, they really know their stuff, not just in plastic recycling, but manufacturing too, so they've seen it all.
From both sides.
Exactly. We'll be covering it all from what makes a plastic strong or flexible to the cost considerations, and we definitely can't forget the environmental angle.
Right. Got to keep it real. It's
Yeah.
2024. You can't ignore that.
For sure. And I think that's where Polysource's expertise is so valuable. They really emphasize how messing up the plastic selection can be a design disaster.
Absolutely. It's all about understanding those material properties.
Yeah.
Get the wrong plastic, it's a recipe for disaster.
Totally. It's like those flimsy ketchup bottles, the ones I always crack at the worst possible moment.
The worst.
Yeah.
Talk about a condiment catastrophe. And it's all because they probably went with a plastic that just couldn't handle the stress, the squeezing.
Oh, for sure. Imagine if they built a playground out of that stuff.
Oh,
Not a
no.
playground I'd want to be on.
No way.
So, how do we avoid these plastic pitfalls? Because it can't just be about hard plastic versus soft plastic, right?
You're telling me. Polysource lays out some key things to consider, and honestly, it's a crash course in material science. First up, strength. How much can this plastic handle before it just gives out?
Makes sense because my phone case needs to survive a few drops. Or let's be honest, a lot of drops.
Exactly, you need that strength. And then there's flexibility. A yoga mat needs to bend, but a helmet needs to hold its shape. Total opposites.
Totally different plastics, totally different jobs.
And of course, the eternal struggle cost.
Always got to balance the budget. What else does Polysource call out?
The environment the product's going to live in. A garden hose.
Yeah.
Totally different needs than like a container you keep inside.
It's crazy how much thought goes into the materials we use every day. It's like every object has a hidden backstory.
It really does.
Speaking of stories, let's introduce some characters in the world of plastics. Starting with, I think, a familiar face, polyethylene, or PE.
PE, it's everywhere.
I feel like I've seen this one on, like, everything.
You probably have, but here's the thing. It's not just one thing. You got your HDPE, your LDPE, even an LLDPE. They're all polyethylene, but each one brings something unique.
Okay, let's break down these acronyms. What is it about HDPE that makes it so special?
Well, HDPE stands for high-density polyethylene. It's the tough stuff. Milk jugs, detergent bottles, even those heavy-duty pipes you see on construction sites, that's all HDPE.
Durable and keeps our milk fresh. Not bad. HDPE, not bad.
Right. Plus, here's a fun fact. HDPE is one of the easiest plastics to recycle. They can melt it down and turn it into all sorts of new products. Talk about a sustainable superhero.
Okay, so we have the responsible older sibling, HDPE. What about LDPE?
So LDPE, or low-density polyethylene, is the flexible one, the one that likes to stretch. Think about those crinkly bread bags, squeeze bottles, those thin food wraps. It's LDPE.
Ah, so that satisfying squeeze. Like, how did we ever live without this?
Right. And it's still surprisingly tough, even at low temperatures. Like, remember those frozen peas we were talking about earlier?
Yeah,
LDPE can handle the chill.
good to know. Okay, last one in the polyethylene family, LLDPE. What's this one all about?
LLDPE, or linear low-density polyethylene, tries to be the best of both worlds. It's got some of that HDPE toughness, but with more of that LDPE flexibility, making it perfect for things like trash bags or those thin, flexible lids you see on yogurt containers.
LLDPE, the unsung hero of keeping our leftovers fresh. Okay, so that was the polyethylene dynasty. Who's next on our plastic lineup?
Let's move on to another big one, polypropylene, or PP,
Polypropylene, PP. Okay, so this one is
a real workhorse.
workhorse, you say. So not as glamorous as the polyethylene siblings.
Hey, don't underestimate PP. It's just incredibly versatile and dependable. We're talking car parts, food containers that can handle heat, even rope.
Wait, rope. Like the kind you use to tie knots? People make rope out of plastic.
You better believe it, PP is stronger than it looks. Plus, it's lightweight, which helps keep shipping costs down. And like HDPE, it's becoming more and more recyclable, which is great news.
All right, TP. You've proven yourself to be more than just a one-trick pony. Now for the final contender in this round of plastic introductions. Polystyrene, or as some might call it, the king of disposable coffee cups.
Ah, yes, PS. It often gets a bad rap, but it's not all bad.
It does keep your coffee warm. for a while at least.
And it's not just coffee cups. It has a whole other side. We're talking CD cases, those disposable plastic cutlery sets, even some packaging materials.
So it's a little more versatile than people might think.
Oh, yeah. You've got your GPPS or general purpose polystyrene. That's the clear, brittle stuff. And then there's HIPS or high impact polystyrene, which is a bit tougher and can take a bit more of a beating.
Okay, so maybe a bit of a rebel, this one. Capable of more than meets the eye, but probably still not the best choice for holding scalding hot beverages for too long.
You got it. And speaking of things it might not be good at, PS does present a bit of a challenge when it comes to recycling. It's not as easily recycled as some of the other plastics we've discussed, which is definitely something to keep in mind.
Duly noted. We'll have to circle back to that whole environmental impact conversation a bit later. For now, though, let's shift gears from the everyday plastics and venture into the realm of what I like to call the heavy hitters, ABS and nylon.
The big leagues of the plastic world.
These are the materials you go for when you absolutely, positively need durability and high performance. And when I think ABS or acrylonitrile butadiene styrene, I gotta be honest, I think Legos.
The stuff of legends.
Seriously. But you're right, ABS is known for its incredible toughness. Car dashboards, power tool housings, anything that needs to be tough and impact resistant.
And it just looks good, too. It's got a great finish, which is why designers love it for those applications. Plus, it can be recycled, which is a big plus.
Okay, and then there's nylon. This one always throws me for a loop. I always think of stockings, and that's about it.
It's way more versatile than that. Yes, it's in clothing, but it's also huge in the world of machinery.
Machinery, really?
Big time. Nylon is strong, durable, but here's the cool part. It's slippery. It reduces friction like crazy.
It does.
Oh, yeah. So it's perfect for gears, bearings, anything that needs to move smoothly without wearing down.
Wow, so it's like secretly making our lives easier?
Totally. And just like with polyethylene, there are different types of nylon, each with its own quirks. PA6, PA66, it's a whole world unto itself.
This is so cool and a little overwhelming, honestly. That's what I love about these deep dives. There's always something new to discover. Speaking of discoveries, we've got more to unpack when it comes to choosing the right plastic. We're talking durability, flexibility, and of course that eternal struggle of cost versus quality. But for that, we'll have to take a quick break. Stay tuned. And we're back. Still neck deep in the world of plastics, trying to sort it all out.
We've met the main players, but now it's about really understanding their strengths, right?
Totally. It's like we've assembled our plastic superhero team, but now we got to figure out who's best suited for which mission. Speaking of strengths, I saw Polysource put together this really cool chart ranking plastics by how tough they are. There are some surprises in there.
For sure. I mean, it just goes to show that you can have two plastics from the same family, and they're totally different when it comes to durability. Like, take HDPE, we know it's good for those milk jugs.
Right, those seem pretty sturdy.
But it's also up there with the toughest when you're talking about impact resistance.
Really? So it can take a hit.
Oh, yeah. Think about it. If it can survive being dropped on the kitchen floor at 6 in the morning,
Been there.
then it's got to be pretty darn durable.
That's true. On the other hand, we've got polystyrene, and we all kind of knew this going in, but
Not exactly known for its sturdiness.
not the top pick for a phone case. Unless you like living dangerously, I guess. But hey, different plastics for different purposes. And sometimes you need a material that's a bit more bendy.
Totally. Flexibility is key for so many applications. Polysource talks about this a lot.
It's true. Think about bendy straws.
Right? Or those Honey Bear bottles that everyone loves to squeeze.
Oh, those are the best.
Or even like the tubing they use in medical equipment, that flexibility is crucial.
Oh, for sure. And don't forget our trusty yoga mats. Nobody wants to try and do downward dog on something stiff as a board.
Exactly. And when it comes to flexibility, nobody beats LDPE. Remember how we were talking about its molecular structure, all those branches?
Yeah, it's like a tangled up mess compared to HDPE.
Right. Well, those branches, they make a looser, more flexible network. It's the difference between like a tangled up ball of yarn.
And a neatly organized spool of thread.
Exactly. One's going to have way more give than the other. And with LDPE, that means it can bend and stretch without going snap. That's why it's great for those food wraps that need to cling tight without ripping.
This is blowing my mind. I never realized how much went into designing something as simple as a plastic bag.
It's easy to take for granted, but it really is a science. But speaking of science, we got to talk about everyone's favorite topic, the budget.
Right, because we can't just ignore the cost. Sometimes going with the cheapest option is tempting, but is that always the right move when you're talking about plastics?
That's the million-dollar question. And here's the thing, Polysource made a really good point about this. Sometimes spending a little bit more upfront for a better plastic,
Okay, yeah.
it can actually save you money down the line.
Now you've got my attention. Tell me more.
All right, so let's say you're making a new super cool water bottle. Everyone's going to want one.
Well, of course.
Now, you could go with a cheaper plastic, but maybe it cracks easily or warps after a few months. Suddenly, everyone's returning them, asking for a new one.
And now you're out even more money.
Exactly. You're paying for that durability one way or another.
So you're basically paying for the good stuff up front.
Exactly. Plus, you're not just thinking about saving money, you're thinking about safety. Like helmets or car seats or medical equipment. Those all need to be made with the really tough plastics.
Oh, absolutely. You don't want something flimsy protecting you in a car accident.
Nope. So yeah, it's about thinking long term, not just about what's cheapest right this second.
Thinking about the bigger picture.
Exactly. And speaking of the bigger picture, we got to address the environmental impact. We can't talk about plastics without talking about that.
Right. We love the convenience of plastics, but we got to be responsible too.
Exactly.
All right, so we're back and ready to tackle the big question, how do plastics impact the environment?
Yeah, it's a big one.
We can't ignore it. So we know recycling is a part of it, but how much does it actually help? And are some plastics easier to recycle than others?
Those are the questions, for sure. And luckily, Polysource gives us a good starting point. Remember how we were talking about HDPE being a recycling rock star?
The overachiever of the plastic world.
Right. Well, turns out that's not just by chance. Something about how HDPE is put together, like on a chemical level, makes it really easy to melt down and reuse.
So that empty milk jug I toss in the recycling bin.
Could have a bright future ahead of it.
Love to hear it. Maybe it'll come back as a park bench or something.
Right. Or even a brand new bottle.
Okay, so HDPE is a winner. What about PP, polypropylene?
Another one with a good track record. More and more, we're seeing PP used in packaging that's designed to be recycled, which is awesome.
Great news. So we're making some progress, but what about the other ones like PVC and PS? Those seem trickier.
Yeah, those are definitely tougher to deal with when it comes to recycling. Their chemical makeup makes it more complicated.
So not as simple as just tossing them in the bin and hoping for the best.
Not quite. But there are people working on solutions, trying to find ways to break them down and give them a second life. It's a challenge, for sure.
It feels like there's a bigger lesson here, you know? Even our smallest choices about the products we buy, it all adds up.
Totally. Choosing a plastic bottle over glass, grabbing a disposable coffee cup because you're in a rush, those decisions has a ripple effect.
It all comes back to being informed, right? We have to educate ourselves about these materials, what they're good for, what happens to them when we're done with them.
Exactly. We can't just think, oh, it's just plastic. We got to go deeper than that. Understand the impact of our choices.
Well said. Huge thanks to Polysource for giving us so much to think about. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us for this plastic adventure. Hopefully you learned something new and maybe you'll look at that milk jug a little differently now.
Definitely not just a milk jug anymore.
Not anymore. And that's it for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time, same channel, for more explorations into the world of materials. Until then, keep those questions coming and keep those brains curious.